Hey everybody, what is up? It is Dan Bach pinch hitting for Crazy Gabey until he can jump on in and join us here on Grinders Live. This show is brought to you by Fantasy Aces. Make sure you run over there and check out their offerings today for college basketball. I know college basketball, pro basketball, as I know they've got a GPP today that's going to turn, I think, $27 into $1,000. So we definitely appreciate them jumping on as a sponsor. I'm Dan Bach. Gabey's going to come back here, hopefully take over for me, but we didn't want to keep you waiting anymore, so let's go in. Draft Cheat, Peter Christensen with us, and DC, not a busy schedule tonight, which is good, so we can kind of run through these games just a little bit, but let's kind of break it down one by one. We will start with, I think, the marquee game of the night, the one that everybody's going to be wanting exposure to, and that's Houston and Philadelphia. So kind of break down some of the top plays in this one, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts.
Yeah, it looks like once again this year, targeting Philadelphia is going to be basically paramount to success, finding the players in this game that are going to do well. Last year, Philadelphia was #1 in the NBA in both steals against and blocks against, and they are right back to that. It took them a whole 2 games to rise to the top of that chart. So guys like Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, James Harden, all the main cogs for Houston, I think, are in play. Dwight Howard, especially interesting, hasn't been off to a good start. A lot of people were predicting good things from him, but this certainly could be a game where he gets on track. So these guys are tough to afford tonight. There's not a lot of value out there, but certainly you're going to want exposure to some of them.
Now, isn't Howard somewhat questionable for tonight? I know he missed Sunday's practice. I think he's somebody we might need to keep our eye on.
Yeah, definitely. He looks like he banged knees with somebody and did miss Sunday's practice. He said he'll be good to go. I do expect him to play, but certainly monitor that up to game time. The next show, maybe we'll have more information about that. But if you're new to NBA, one thing that you'll learn quickly, you do need to be monitoring news, or at least signed up for RotoGrinders email alerts to try to get these guys in there. I expect them to play, but certainly not a sure thing.
Yeah, I think there's some, other plays we need to consider here. Beverly, what's his status tonight? He missed the last game, and I think it was Kanan came in, and Isaiah Kanan, I don't know the proper pronunciation there, but he came in and was fairly productive for a cheap salary. For me, I think Beverly's the key here, because if he plays, I don't think I want any interest in Tony Wroten. If he sits, then I think you got Kanan is a cheap play on a night where there's not a lot of cheap plays out there, and then I think that puts Wroten into play because he doesn't have to face probably a top 5 defender in the league.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. One thing, I basically never take the point guard against Patrick Beverly when he's in the lineup against Houston, which is interesting considering that Houston generally a team that you don't mind taking players against. They play at a high pace. Normally teams are able to put up a good amount of points against them. But Beverly, his goal in life, it seems, is to kind of pester and shut down the opposing team's point guard. So if he is in, I would completely avoid Tony Wroten. If he's out, Tony Wroten suddenly becomes a pretty good play.
Absolutely. And what's your take on this Euro over on Houston? I can't even pronounce his name correctly, but he's somebody that I know we kind of is somebody to kind of take a look at. Kostas Papanikolaou, I think that might be the proper way. He's 3,600 on Fantasy Aces tonight. Their floor is 3K, and most of those guys are sitting in the D League. So this guy certainly can open up some salary cap for you. And again, limited day today. We only have a handful of games. Is he somebody that you would consider in cash game tournament, or are you avoiding?
No, he's definitely on my radar. It looks like he's playing between 20 and 25 minutes a game, at least the first 3 games of the year. Takes 3-pointers, contributes 4 assists in each of these games. So obviously comes from Euroland, knows how to pass the ball, probably plays good basketball. Helps out on the boards. Looks like he's doing a little bit of everything, and certainly this is kind of the matchup you would look to roster a guy like him. If Houston is able to blow out Philadelphia, that does happen fairly often, he could see a little bit of extra run. Makes you nervous taking a guy like him that has 3 games of NBA track record and is not a big name, but minimum price and it does look like he helps out in multiple categories. So I think he's someone you should definitely consider.
I saw somebody mention Henry Sims is questionable, and maybe Brandon Davies could amount to a value play if Sims is out, and he would draw the start. Again, on a night like tonight, it's tough to kind of find those value plays. For me, though, Terrence Jones and I think Harden are almost must plays, especially on FanDuel. They're both, I mean, for me, simple question, DC. If you got to play Harden tonight or Unibrow tonight, isn't it Harden 9 times out of 10 against considering Unibrow's going against Memphis?
Yeah, I'll be fading the Brow tonight. Faded him last time too, and that didn't work out. Kind of hard to strongly recommend fading a guy that's averaging 69 fantasy points per game through 2 matchups. But you're right, going against Memphis, one of the toughest matchups in all of the NBA, and Harden probably has the best matchup you can get. So I would lean Harden here. One thing, I do think he'll have a monster year now that Jeremy Lin and Chandler Parsons have departed. Harden had 10 assists and 6 assists in the first 2 games. He's got the ball in his hands constantly, and I do expect him to keep performing well.
All right. Anybody else from Philly that you're looking at here? I mean, I know that the kid Noel had a pretty solid game a couple of games ago, but then followed it up with a bit of a dud. I don't really like him tonight. Going against Houston doesn't seem like the kind of matchup he's going to have a great performance in, so I'm off him.
Yeah, I'm not looking at Philly guys too much. Mostly Tony Roden if he's able to go. If Henry Sims is out, then Davies and Noel both become more interesting, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
Okay, OKC Brooklyn. This game is got not the highest total out there, but you do have a situation where Oakland is so beat up. You've got guys playing upwards of like 40 minutes a game, and anytime people are playing that kind of minutes and you have that short of a bench, you've got to kind of look to exposure. The real question is Reggie Jackson. A word that I saw earlier today is that he is going to play today. So definitely stay tuned for the next show with Alan Dean. They'll probably look for more confirmation via Twitter on that. Obviously, check our Twitter. If you don't have our incentives, you should, because you get our roster or email alerts, which will let you know when these things become official. But Jackson, I think, is the key today for Oklahoma City. Not necessarily great value on some sites, not terrible on Fantasy Aces at 4,700, but say on FanDuel at 72, that's kind of a lot to play for a guy that we don't know what his minutes are going to be. I think we know what his role is going to be because they don't have a lot of scorers out there, but I'm curious, how are you looking at Reggie Jackson here?
Yeah, he's a tough call for me. Gabey, you on the show now?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Okay, I'm jumping off, Gabes. You guys go for it.
Go.
All right, thank you to Dan for filling in. Gabey is here now. Gabey, we just moved over to the Oklahoma City-Brooklyn game, and I was giving my take on Reggie Jackson, who I think he's a decent play where you can get him for a lower salary, but I do worry that he won't play as many minutes as we might expect. I do expect him to put up a lot of shots in his time in the game. Are you on the same page there?
Yeah, actually, that's where I was. I actually went out and was talking with some of the OKC Thunder management. It looks like Reggie Jackson good to go tonight. So.
Yeah, I do expect him to be in there.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll find him on a lot of your rosters?
It's going to be price dependent. There's a few places that I really like his salary, but all in all, the point guard position is one that I'm not a huge fan of tonight.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page there. If we're talking about other guys from the Thunder, I think the big name, the one that I'm considering, Perry Jones. Price has come up a lot of places. At our sponsor, Fantasy Aces, he is the same, basically minimum salary or close to it. I think he's a must-play over there. But FanDuel, DraftKings, he's kind of got that mid-range price tag where I don't think you have to play him. I think he's in play. Give me your take on Perry Jones tonight.
I like Perry Jones if his price is right. Are you good to get back to some of these?
Yeah, we can get back to some of these.
I don't want to waste this. I spent a good amount of time planning out the nonsense that I bring to this show. I don't want to waste it.
All right, so let's get on these nonsense.
Okay, and we're going to have to go quick, so I just need you to give me your rapid fire for a lot of these. Reggie Jackson, a lot of people may not realize, in a big contract dispute earlier in the season. Turns out he's going to head into free agency. He's not actually going to be with Oklahoma City, most likely after this season. He's seen what guys not named Westbrook and Durant mean to the Oklahoma City Thunder management. Does that mean he just comes out and is completely wanton with his shot selection, knowing that he will be playing somewhere else and he's showcasing his abilities for another team?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, more so it's just that the Thunder, for me, don't have a lot of scoring threats. You know, you've got Steven Adams and Kendrick Perkins at the center spot. Serge Ibaka, not a guy that really likes to chuck it up and create. Andre Roberson, not a shooter at all. And Perry Jones, he can shoot, but not alpha dog scorer by any means. So all those things lead to a lot of Reggie Jackson shots. Certainly being upset about his contract could play into that.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next one, which is Lionel Hollins says no minutes restriction for Brook Lopez if he plays. Are you believing this, or are you going to play a wait-and-see approach to Brook Lopez?
Yeah, definitely wait and see for me. Not seeing him at a super discount anywhere, so I'll wait and see what he does. Always an injury risk there, and not a guy that I roster a ton of anyway.
Now, I know CP3 is not officially on the injury report, but are you a former athlete or maybe a current athlete, DC?
Yeah, sure, you could say that.
Okay. So you've rolled an ankle playing basketball before, or football or whatever. You know how that bad boy can feel great after the game. You wake up the next morning and it's swollen to high heaven.
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about with CP3 tonight is, even though he's not listed on the injury report, CP3, definitely a very gutty player. I'm a little surprised that they wouldn't give him a game off tonight. I know that they're really trying to get their offense in unison and in sync. They've looked really bad on the offensive end of the floor to start the season, but I can't help but think he's not going to be a little limited this evening. Maybe he's just playing because Jamal Crawford might be out. I just don't see him doing a whole lot. Definitely not going to be investing in his price tag tonight.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, especially on non-late swap sites. I wouldn't go there. And even if I knew he was in, given the fact that he's a little banged up, he's a guy that, at times does kind of take a backseat to Blake Griffin and the other people in that offense. He can kind of dominate a game without showing up huge on the score sheet. So sometimes he does, just kind of let other people run the show. I expect him to play, but I don't expect him to have a monster game.
All right, Rudy Gay has come out and said, I know I need to pass more, I need to be a better teammate, I need to facilitate the offense, all the while he's averaging like 2.5 assists per game.
He did have 6 in his last game, though.
Did have 6 in his last game. Now, could that be a one-game epiphany that leads to increased production for the rest of the season? I don't know. I want to know your take on this. Honestly, has Rudy Gay somehow become the quintessential teammate, or is he going to be Rudy out for himself Gay? And should we trust the new uptick in efficiency that we're seeing from him?
Efficiency, no, I'm not going to buy that. I don't think he has altered his shot or anything like that. For me, he's the same old Rudy Gay. This is just a 3-game stretch where he's been particularly effective knocking down shots. He has been getting to the free throw line quite a bit, which is encouraging to see, and knocking those free throws down. And 6 assists certainly in his last game. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to repeat his career high game after game, but probably not for me. It's good to hear him talk about being a better teammate, but I need a bigger sample size before I trust that.
Yeah, I do as well. I will say one thing. He has been getting into the paint with ease, and he's actually been much more aggressive and getting better shots than what he used to get. So a lot of the two-pointers he used to shoot were those 19, 18-foot fadeaways, which are just probably the worst shot in basketball.
Yeah, what's interesting about a guy like Rudy Gay talking like that about being more efficient, being a better passer, is that he does have the necessary skill set to be a better player. He's been a player that people have been frustrated with, GMs have been frustrated with, because he's not living up to his talent. Certainly able to get into the lane, able to get to the rim, just has settled for jumpers. So, he could do it, and now it seems like he is doing it the last couple of games. So it's at least conceivable that it would continue, but I'm still not really buying it.
All right, let's move it on over to today's Tatums, and we got to go fast through this one as well. Again, not a whole lot of time left here, so I'm going to ask you, if on late swap sites, for some reason Chris Paul does end up sitting out this one and they're just keeping it close to the vest, how important would you see Jordan Farmar as somebody you needed to late swap into your lineup?
I think pretty important considering that Jamal Crawford might miss this game too. If both those guys are out, Farmar, Reddick, basically all the guards from from LA Clippers, excuse me, become pretty good plays.
I'm with you on that. Devin Harris, kind of a sneaky, unheralded value play. I saw you taking down a few tournaments on opening night with Devin Harris in your lineup.
Yeah.
The thing I like about Devin Harris, and the reason I think he's viable still, is when he's on the court, he generally has the ball in his hands. It's actually he who comes in and relieves Monte Ellis of his pseudo point guard duties. Jameer Nelson really has been running off the ball, been more of a three-point spot-up specialist. Are you still on board with Devin Harris?
Yeah, I like him, especially where you can get him cheap. Still pretty cheap on FanDuel. I believe he's got a good price on our sponsor, Fantasy Aces, as well.
Yep.
He's not going to have a huge game for you, but you're just looking for him to return value. And at a point guard position, which is tough tonight, I think he's a good option. I think you nailed it. When he comes in, he is an offensive threat. He is running the point, being the distributor. And the matchup tonight is pretty nice. Dallas expected to score 109 points by Vegas projections and favored by 10. So it's possible he'll come in, midway through the third quarter and never leave the game.
I'm a huge fan of the guys that come in midway through the third quarter and never leave the game. Anyone who has that potential just gets a slight boost in upside for me. And as somebody, it's the kind of thing that I won't base my opinion off of. I won't build my lineup around that. But if I have a tie and I'm really stuck, I'm at odds between two different players, that will often be a tiebreaker that I utilize.
So here's a question. Same price. If price is no issue, Harris or Jameer Nelson?
Oh, Harris for me.
Yeah.
I just see much more usage when he's on the court.
Yeah, it's funny taking the backup in that situation, but I think it is the right call in this particular situation.
Yeah, definitely, and that is a rarity, so you don't see it a lot. Hollis Thompson is somebody that I actually kind of am starting to have a little bit of a thing for. Like, if we were in class together, I would be writing a note and passing it along with like a, will you go out with me? Circle 1, yes or no. I'm a little bit of a thing starting to develop for him.
I think you'd say no.
Okay. Probably. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would appreciate a good beard. But look, what's interesting to me is that he could shoot 19 times, not be particularly efficient, and still get minutes the next game. That tells me a lot about what the coaching staff thinks of him and basically what kind of leash they're going to give him. That's kind of the in-between-the-lines take that I have on Hollis Thompson.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. Certainly, doing my research for tonight, interested to see that 19-shot game.
Yeah.
Sandwiched between 2 5-shot and 8-shot games. So
yeah.
It does look like a bit of an outlier, not a guy that helps a ton in the other categories. I mean, he has got 4 steals one game and 3 blocks last game. I don't think that will continue. I get wanting to play him on a night where there's not a ton of value plays. I don't think he'll kill you. Not a ton of upside, but I think he's a decent way to go at value.
Yeah, and I think on our sponsor site, Fantasy Aces, definitely not solid. If you look, he's actually not even priced close enough to the minimum to really count as like a bare minimum play, and there are a lot of guys around that $4,000 salary that you would be much more happy to utilize. So Fantasy Aces, I do think he is a clean fade.
Yeah, Hollis Thompson, the type of guy that you want him to be at the site's bare minimum to make him a good, viable option.
What about Sebastian Telfair if for some reason Reggie Jackson misses this game?
Again, price dependent. I mean, it's kind of a cop-out to say that in DFS, as everything is, of course, price dependent. On DraftKings at 5,500, I don't know if I want to go there. Just not a guy that shoots a lot or shoots very well, to be honest. 1 for 10 last game, 0 for 4 from 3. Of course, that will come up a little bit, but just not a very good basketball player, to be honest. Was touted as one coming out of high school, but hasn't panned out. I want a better value on my price than that.
Okay, and last guy I want to mention, he's not exactly a Tatum, but for tonight's purposes, he could be extremely undervalued. Terrence Jones in the great matchup. Dwight Howard, if he ends up sitting out, would you consider Terrence Jones a must-play this evening?
If Dwight Howard is out, yeah, you got to play Terrence Jones. I mentioned before you jumped on the show here, Philadelphia, led the league in steals and blocks against last year, and it took them all of 2 games to jump to that top of that chart for 2014. So I like Terrence Jones. I think he could block 3, 4, 5 shots tonight, and certainly could tear it up on the boards as well.
And Russell Westbrook's price is too low not to take him, says one of our chatters. So if Tupac was back. All right, there we go. Let's move it along to the Fantasy Aces Ace in the Hole. This is a new segment we're going to be doing for our new sponsor, Fantasy Aces. Actually, I would appreciate it if all of you would take an opportunity to use hashtag Fantasy Ace in the Hole. That is hashtag Fantasy Ace in the Hole. And get on Twitter. Tell me who your ace in the hole is. And let me tell you what an ace in the hole is. Somebody that not a lot of people are talking about, but you think might find the way into a lot of your lineups. And I got a good one for you here, DC.
All right, I'm excited to hear it.
Marc Gasol with a 29.8% usage rate through the first 3 games. It was said that Coach Yeager in the offseason basically took him aside and said, look, it's great and all that you're playing defense like a champion, but we need you to facilitate this offense. We need it to stop and end with you. And I'm seeing it through the first 3 games. If Marc Gasol is going to contribute the way he does in the peripheral statistics and put up 20 points a game, I think it's nearly impossible to count him out in cash games regardless of the matchup, especially since if you've watched a Grizzlies game so far, which I've actually caught 2 of them, he's essentially the guy that they run the offense through. It touches his hands first on just about every, unless it touches Zach Randolph's hands first. And then it's either a turnover, a missed shot, or a field goal. It's one of those 3 things. But Marc Gasol has basically been the cog that runs the offense, and I'm a big fan of him tonight in cash games, and I think a lot of people are going to be overlooking him with the low total and the potentially bad matchup, but I don't know if that matters so much with his usage.
Yeah, I actually like him a lot. I think that's a good call. You're right about the usage. He is, he looks great. People talked about it in preseason. He's in great shape. He's taking more shots, and that's always been the problem with taking Gasol is he was only likely to give you between 10 and 15 points. Now he's putting up 20 points a game and facilitating the offense, taking those jumpers. You got to love him. He contributes in all 5 categories. And I'm not too worried about the matchup here. Hard on paper against the Brow and Asik, but we saw what Vucevic did to them the first game. Gasol, I think, is kind of a guy that is more or less matchup proof. Funny to say, but when you contribute in all categories, that can be the case. And totally with you on the Gasol call. I think he's a great play tonight.
Yep. And here on our sponsor site, Fantasy Aces, his price tag of $5,800. Big fan of that as well. You're getting kind of a significant discount for some of the top options that are up around $7,000, $7,300.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
In love with that. What about you? Who is your Fantasy Aces ace in the hole this evening?
I'm looking at ISO Joe Johnson.
All right. I didn't have him in my notes, but I'm glad you brought him up. Tell me why you like this guy tonight, because I was thinking when I was reading through some Roto World blurbs that this might be a guy I should be considering.
I mean, we've seen in the past some big stretches from Joe Johnson where the offense, needs to rely on him, and he just puts up shot after shot. 2 games he's played so far, the Nets have played. He's played 34 and 39 minutes and put up 19 and 23 shots. That is 21 shots a game, folks. You're going to have a good game if you put up 21 shots. And Joe Johnson, he's a guy that can put the ball in the bucket, contributing in rebounds, assists too. I think Paul Pierce leaving the team has kind of freed him up to do more facilitating. He and Darren Williams are really the key cogs on that team. And when you look at who they're running out at the 3, 4, and 5 positions, those guys are not scorers. So it really is up to Deron and Joe Johnson. I think he continues and has a good game tonight against OKC.
There you have it, folks. Our Fantasy Aces ace in the hole this evening. For DC, it's going to be Joe Johnson. For myself, it's going to be Marc Gasol. And make sure you get on Twitter. Tell us your Fantasy Aces ace in the hole using hashtag Fantasy Ace in the hole. In the future, going to let you guys know there are going to be some cool contests, cool promotions that we're going to be running using that hashtag. So make sure you condition yourself Pavlov's Bell style. Every time you hear me talk about it, get your ass on Twitter, start tweeting about it. We're going to go through Uncle Dean's under-overs very quickly. I'm only going to ask you. I want your answer because we don't have a lot of time. Kobe trade percentage, 25%.
Over.
Yeah, same here. I said I wasn't going to give my answer, but I have to chime in. Sorry. Number of times the announcers reference Kevin Garnett being back tonight.
I'll go with.
I'm gonna put it at 5.
I was gonna say 4, so we're close there.
Okay. Number of separate incidents tonight between JaVale McGee and DeMarcus Cousins. I'm gonna set it at 3.5.
I say that 3.5 is that's just average for DeMarcus Cousins. You throw in JaVale McGee, I'll raise it up to 5.
Okay, so you definitely take the over in that one. I like it.
Yeah.
Jared Sullinger rebounds, and I ask this one because a lot of people have asked me questions on Twitter today about Jared Sullinger. I set it at 9.5 tonight. I think this Dallas team is sort of poor defensively rebounding. Do you think 9.5 is too high or too low?
I'll go under there. Tyson Chandler sweeps up a lot of those boards.
Okay. Perry Jones points if Reggie Jackson plays. I'm going to go 19.5.
I'll take the under if Jackson is in and the over if Jackson is out.
Okay, so and just by that is real life points, not fantasy points.
Yep.
So I think that's right around the number that we would maybe be thinking of if Reggie Jackson.
I think that's a good line you set there, Gabey.
Cool. Percentage chance that CP3 might miss this game tonight. I'm going to set it at a 15% chance.
I'll take the over, but I do think he plays.
Okay, so you think I think 15% is right around that. There's a chance that they're just hiding this injury, not revealing it, and they're just going to spring it on us at 10:15 tonight.
Yeah, and we know we all take our guesses in NBA, but honestly, it's pretty hard to get a read on whether or not some of these guys are going to play. There are surprises nearly every night.
That's why lineup alerts are fun. I'm going to have my hands full, of course, doing the lineup alerts once we get done with the show. So you guys check your email inboxes and sign up for them if you haven't already. Just go to your My account on rotogrinders.com and click in the email preferences or email notifications tab. It's one of those two, and you can turn on your NBA email alerts. Maybe I'll even say hi to you. No, probably not. Bottom line, last thing before we got to get going here, because we do got to get off the show and make way for Mr. Al Smizzle and Dean 78904. My bottom line has to do with my sunglasses. DC, people have asked me before why I wear sunglasses. Well, you know what? I'm kind of sensitive to light. I actually work in the dark all day long. I don't keep any lights on in my office. It's my preference. It's my style. And there is a daily fantasy basketball connection. Make your lineups the way you're comfortable with. I see a lot of people asking questions. What's the best way to research? What's the best method for researching? How do you do your research? How do you do your research? I tend to think research is very person specific. I think every person has a different style that works for them. Everyone builds lineups in a different way. And my advice to all of you listening, if you're wondering how to better research daily fantasy basketball or any other sport, is to stop caring so much about how other people do it and trying to replicate them, and trying to figure out what's most comfortable for you while integrating some of those methods you hear other people talking about into your own style of research. Make it your own. It'll be much more comfortable for you, and I think you'll have a lot more success coming up with your own method as opposed to just trying to copy somebody else's.
Good advice there. Always remember to have fun while you're playing this game. That's why we all got into fantasy sports in the first place.
Exactly.
And I'll say tonight, guys, my main advice for this slate, I think you're going to have to go with a lot of mid-range players. Stars and scrubs does not look like the approach to take tonight to me.
Absolutely not. DC, thanks so much for hanging out with me here and the folks today. I'll see you guys all back here tomorrow, and until then, peace out.